Hello, it's not Briggs. Just going to keep going with the daily Hopperwaddy. That's the update. At least it was 20 years ago in Australia. Sorry, it looks like I haven't slept for 36 hours because I haven't. Big last post, I was astonished that I'd be blown off after having my opinions solicited by they're paid to be solicited local member. I mean, they're paid to solicit their constituents' local member in the elevator yesterday when I told you about the elevator pitch. But I sort of half of why I didn't sleep last night, but the rest of it's what I've told you about already. But the other half of why I probably won't sleep tonight at all either, unless I get some drugs, is, and I mean, you know, knock yourself out drugs. And aggressive. Surprise, surprise. Criticise somebody in public, they don't usually like it. She probably didn't hear it. Not like I care, because the point of it was that despite all of her people in her office being paid to do a real job in the real world on real money, unlike me, and despite me, so I got a no-caller ID call this morning at, like, you know, a hair past freckle. And after I'd sent quite a few bashing on significant doors emails yesterday going like, what's going on over here? This is my Labor rep and she won't listen and it's been 12 weeks and this is fucking serious. I phoned, you know, because I always give chase to the phone. You don't email someone and expect that they read it. You do the classic old market research thing and campaigning, inveterate campaigner since I was 10 years old thing. By phoning after you contact somebody through writing. I say since 10 years old because I was. Hello, Danny Hannon and Ryan Atkins and Jeremy Pepper and Sharon, because you'll remember that we fundraised for baby harp seals that were being clubbed. To death. Wow, I just got the ironic significance of that. Clubbed to death over the head next to their mothers. Excuse me. They were harp seals. They were baby harp seals with perfect white coats. On the Arctic Circle. In the Arctic Circle being bashed to death for their beautiful skins. In 1980, and despite skyhooks, I was allowed to watch the horror movie right there on my TV every night while Mum cooked meat and 3 veg. On Bilgola Plateau, and I was, of course, mortified. It was Iran and Iraq. It was a Brian Henderson with the Channel 9 News, and Iran and Iraq, but there's also baby harp seals being bashed to death for their skins. But World Wildlife Fund were going around and getting cans of red paint and spraying them, so they were ruining their coats so that they were worth nothing. Bashing them to death next to their mothers. Apart from all the innocent people who never got a chance, I fucking hope Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos gets on one of his fucking rockets and pisses off to Mars and it fails, and there will be no David Bowie attempt to contact them at this point, because he'll be like, hey, see ya, fuckers. You assholes. Imagine trying to live on a dead red planet with no oxygen, no water. You fucking idiots. You're pretty fucking stupid for people who are supposed to be bright. You are fucking stupid. And selfish and greedy pieces of shit. paying everybody nothing, and then all the world's women, like, you could halve climate change tomorrow just by giving them all contraception. You fucking disgusting morons. And you've got enough money to do it, but you want to put it into rockets to go to Mars. And then Professor Brian Cox, of all people who should know way better, is jumping on there like, when I was a boy, it was boys' own too, and I want to go to Mars! Like some sort of Jetson with his, I thought it was cool in the LA Games, speaking of being 10, when some dude landed in LA with a backpack on and a rocket on the back of it, over the top of the Olympic Stadium, and landed, and I was like, wow, the future just got excellent. No, that hasn't happened. They've got drones, and speaking of droning, I may be droning on again here, but here we are. Fucking hell. These arseholes, how's it even legal? I mean, this is half the pictures. How is any of this shit legal? So it's legal for the richest men on earth to give nothing to the poorest women, on whose backs they all stand, and their war munitions and their military industrial complex and their oil that's stinking up the planet and their low-paid, cheap as shit labour that they all... Anyway, back when I was 10, to get back to 1980, I became a campaigner for life, because I saw these baby harp seals being clubbed to death on the nightly news with Brian Henderson next to Iran and Iraq, and went to school, resolved that moment as I was crying in a blithering mess to do something about it. Usually helps. Not that I had anyone around me actually doing anything about that at that stage, except that, the dedicated father earning money for his 3 children and his partner, his wife, and a dedicated mother loving us. And despite their unhappinesses at most of the time, they didn't raise their voice ever once, and they weren't drunks, and they were lovely people. They would give you the shirt off their back. Which then begs the question, where do you take the measure of somebody really? Because if they turn into abject fuckwits afterwards, you've got to wonder, who are they really? And you're in trouble when somebody is insulting you by calling you an angel, as my father's new wife did, or my father himself, sarcastically in an email to me on the anniversary of her death, patently making up fallacies that are so unrepeatable it's disgusting, and I do digress there. Well, where do you take the measure? So anyway, in 10 years of age in 1980, I go to school full of resolve and knock on the principal's door and say, we want to do a jelly bean guessing competition for the World Wildlife Fund, because they're spraying with tags of spray paint the coats of baby harp seals who are being clubbed to death next to their mothers. And we don't, as a little child, you look at that and you just go, as I've just said, wow, how could any human being do that? And they were always faceless, masked men, as they shove a bag over a woman's head in 45-degree heat. All these masked, faceless men, like the trolls who trolled me yesterday. G'day, trolls. I don't even know how you got onto my thread. I didn't tag anybody, so I super don't know how you got onto my thread. But some mindless trolls called Kylie Mope. It's got to be it's got to be a pseudonym, doesn't it? Mope. Kylie Mope. And some dude with a chainsaw for his photo trolled me in one of the posts below. Anyway, knock yourself out and have a look if you can be bothered. I mean, got this really bright friend called Rick Bell, and hi Rick. He's probably not watching this. He's too busy writing mathematical theory, but then again he stupidly indulges himself in trying to convert right-wing nutjobs and wasting his time, because was it Shakespeare who said only an idiot would argue with a fool? Or was it the other way around? Anyway, so I go to school in year 10, when I was 10 in year 1980, and say we'd like to do a jelly bean guessing competition to make sure that we can give money to the World Wildlife Fund to fund those brave people who are running out onto the Arctic ice and spraying the perfectly pure white, soft, fluffy coats of baby harp seals who are being clubbed to death next to their mother. And so thus began the campaigning period of my life, which is now 42 years. I died trying. Anyway, so giving you the hopper whitey. So I, didn't sleep for the last 36 hours. I'm going, Jesus Christ, we can't even get your local female Labor member who voted yes in the referendum to answer you back. And then she did this morning. Normally take no caller ID, but I took it because she said that she called back yesterday when I rephoned them after having written a couple of kind of emails to some key people who've been supporting us, like, can you actually phone them up and lean on them to do something, because that is their job. And so some word must have gone around, because when I finally got onto the woman whose name I can't remember, who's the diary manager, she said, she's going to call you today, and she didn't. And so this morning at 9 o'clock was good enough to be today, because that was said yesterday at 4:30 or whatever, so it's still today, relatively speaking. And so she called, and I kept it on the lowdown. I tried to, when you're in this situation, it's so emotionally debilitating, and you get so angry about the violation of your children and your human rights, and you get so angry about the fact that you're powerless because, your children are just being stolen in irretrievable years of their life gone, and you'll never get it back. So it doesn't matter how much money in the world you got, even if you were Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you would never buy their time back. And they could come to serious harm. Not like you can ever prevent that, knock on wood. But you can try, when they're only 11 and 12 years old, to have a far greater influence in their life if you're actually there. And you can't if you're being deliberately blocked from them by a vicious ex who doesn't want to pay child support and who wants you to fuck off back to Tasmania and die, as he told me. So I get this call this morning, and it's the local member, Alison Burns, and she, I pushed it down my emotion. I knew it would be her most probably, and so she was like, "Oh, is that Danielle Farrow?" And I was like, "Yes, it is. Sorry, who's this?" "Oh, thanks, Alison," and left it just portentously enough, because she'd obviously got the memo. And I didn't really appreciate not being called after 12 weeks. So it was reasonable. Like, I left it every 3 or 4 weeks, the 3 or 4 times I came into her office and then emailed and stuff. So I thought it was a fairly reasonable. But she wanted to get her back up because and I had no idea until after the call, because I'd mentioned, look, I'm going to have to go over the road to your state Labor constituent, Minister Scully for Wollongong, and talk to him about all these related issues because of the police's failure to uphold my children's family law court orders. And she went, "Scully?" And she kind of acted like violently, reactively. And I said, not violently, but I mean verbally violently. And I thought, yeah, well, you would surely know who they are, because they're literally over the road from you, literally. And they're Labor, and they're state, and you're federal. So you surely would have natural exchange, intercourse, social and political intercourse. And I had no idea until I got off the phone, because of her reaction. I thought, well, what's the relationship there? They're married. So there goes my chances with Minister Scully, because she got straight to the point. My office workers work very hard. And obviously her office workers could, by logic, hear her at this stage, because 9:15. So no doubt her office workers were working very hard, but of course her office workers are bloody well paid too. That's their job. And I don't have any money for this non-stop, constant work and shit show of trying to uphold basic human rights under Article 9 UNESCO human rights provisions and under Section 60C of the Family Law Court Act at all. So so the tone and the deliberate and complete inference deliberately was that I was meant to be, I was imposing. Even though, like I said yesterday in the broadcast, there's a letter there asking me to come in, and I'd already done so many times, and they just ignored me for 12 weeks straight. So I map the terrain ideas-wise out, and at this point, and eventually, not knowing that she's married to the Labor State Minister Scully, I say, well, look, a lot of this is dovetailing into state policing issues, because they're failing, and I don't know if I told you this, but the local Wollongong Police Senior Constable Lloyd stole my grandparents' jewellery just to top it all off. Well, he didn't, sorry, take that back. He insulted me in front of 2 other female witnesses up in Taroji, saying that I deserved to lose my children, A, and B, he was personally glad that I had. And this is a serving member of the New South Wales so-called police service that used to be a service, that now a force. And he told me that in front of 2 other female witnesses who didn't know me. So, boy, have I written to Yasmin Catley, the Minister for New South Wales Police, about that. Because it's the same police force, of course, who are like knocking off 93-year-olds on Zimmer frames with butter knives in their hands with dementia, and they taser them to death. Genius. You don't have to do anything much other than comply to get into the police force, apparently. I asked them, all 5 of them, when they were arresting me for the wrong affidavit, for the wrong AVO. That was then overturned, but not before they threw me in a shit-smeared paddy wagon with 5 police, as I've said before, 3 squad cars, a shit-smeared paddy wagon, a jail cell where I got COVID despite being triple immunised with the gold standard of AstraZeneca at 12 weeks intervals and at 12-week intervals. And anyway, all this lovely stuff, unbelievable. So this idiot, this vicious idiot senior, who should be fired, as I've said to Yasmin Catley, what could you possibly, how could you possibly expect a serving member of the New South Wales Police Force to even have the conception to say to a woman that she deserved to lose her children, and that he was personally glad I had because I'm exactly the sort of person who should. So clearly hadn't looked at the person who's stolen my children from me's police record, because he would have seen 3 police-initiated AVOs to protect 3 different women, including me, 10 years ago, over 25 years. And yet, so he only had gone and spoken to this person who, of course, again, like the father of my oldest child, liked to try to involve problems anytime I was around them, to add on to the record of the pile-on, legally, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise, the legal pile-on for you to not be able to access your children. Just outrageous misuse of AVOs that were intended to stop Rosie Batty's ex from murdering her son Luke, or her, and to stop these men murdering women all around Australia every week. So this misuse, as Mark Davis puts it, of Xenophon Davis lawyers, who's defending nobly David McBride the next 2 weeks down in Canberra, whistleblower, says it's out of control. Like, these AVOs being used just left, right and centre. And of course, half the Northern Territory's got one because they've had an interaction with the police, so can't get a job after that, so there goes that. And so if you want to also encourage Aboriginal employment, you might look at revisiting the laws about AVOs and the automatic overnight get it back within 24 hours, $40 police check that can be done on everyone. And so, if you've ever had a run-in with the law, see you later. And you should see the array, the variety of people down at the local court who've had a run-in with their neighbours or something, and the AVO's gone on and bam, that's it, they're out of the paid workforce. So, so being an inveterate campaigner from back in 1980, when I first did a jelly bean guessing competition, having seen the little baby harp seals being clubbed to death overnight on the Channel 9 News, on the Arctic snowfields for their pure coats, and then World Wildlife Fund bravely went and sprayed red tags. I'm only repeating this because I've seen some people drop in, and so wrecked their coats, and so that they weren't killed anymore. And I thought, that's an intelligent, practical idea, so we should fund that. So, getting back to intelligent, practical ideas, remember, the entire campaign here is to make a law to criminalise the violation of children's rights and parents' human rights to being a meaningful, loving parent in Australia, by actually criminalising any parent who takes a child off another loving parent, particularly against family law court orders, which I have. And like I said, it's now 8 adults, 3 women and 5 men, who I know who haven't seen their children in years and have described literally being suicidal as a result. So I get the call after not sleeping, as you can clearly see. I'm sorry, it just is appalling. I'm so tired, it's debilitating. It really is designed to destroy you. So I get the call from the local member, and she's already pissed off because I've annoyed her workers, and she's within audience of her workers. They can hear her literally, and so she's giving a platform speech from her pulpit, from her soapbox. She's telling everybody that they are really hard workers in her office and they're sick of me calling and harassing them. It's like, and at that point, I did stop the very calm, low level. Hi, well, hopefully you've had a chance to read what I put to you, and I appreciate you calling me back, but we'll cut to the chase. I wasn't asking you to interfere in my family law court case. I'm not that stupid. It's illegal, as I said yesterday, at length in these broadcasts. And I actually am asking you to make law. Make law, not break law. Make law, not break law. Yeah? John Lennon style. Make love, not war. Well, no, make law, not break law. So that's what I was asking you to do. And she was claiming that I was essentially, like within earshot of all of her workers after she'd just gone into the office. She was claiming that I was taking up too much of her time. At which point I said, do you have children? I know it's not relevant that you could be a representative of anyone if you don't, but do you happen to have children? So I hadn't even Wikipedia'd her. I just had presumed and hoped that she was a good, hardworking, diligent Labor local female federal rep, like most of them are. But she wanted to get the shits with me. It was on because I'd already sort of I didn't mean to, but I was forced to by her all of these great workers she was defending's non-action on anything that I'd reasonably gone in over 12 weeks several times, leaving it 2 and 3 and 4 weeks in between visits, and then phone calls, and then some emails, and then the bang, bang, bang on the door, like, hi, is this going to happen or what? That's their job. Remember, they're public servants. They're paid from the tax purse to do this. And she literally started as soon as she found her opening, this tiny crack, because I was like, hang on a minute, well, I'm not asking you to interfere. Remember I told you, and because my manner was kind of like, not terse, but at this point, I'm not suffering fools, obviously, I never did, but I'm not suffering anyone who's going to try and get cranky with me, for them doing their job. That's kind of intellectually offensive, isn't it? And morally offensive and logically offensive on every level. You don't scope the shits with someone if you're a public servant for doing their job, particularly not when you've invited them into your office to do the job, and listen to them like you said you wanted to, but not really if their matter's too complex. And, of course, remember us explained yesterday, she was pretending that I was trying to get her to interfere with the family law court case that isn't even underway because I've already got the orders and they have never been enforced. And the whole point is a new law is made because the non-enforcement of them doesn't cost anybody anything, particularly the men and women who are making sure that children can't actually know their parents in any meaningful way by having any time with them. So if you don't make a law that criminalises that, when you can go to jail for driving your car after 16 weeks of not paying a parking fine in Australia, and your skill set hasn't changed at all, but you haven't paid your parking fine, so they take your licence off you, cancel it, and then you get in your car to drive, and you are a criminal in a criminal court, risking jail and definitely a criminal record and or penalty of financial penalty or jail time or community service order or anything, right? So it's criminal. But taking a child off a parent against family law court orders, absolutely nothing happens to you. So I keep pressing this central point is that, no, I don't want her to interfere with my law. I actually want her to make a fucking law. That's what legislators do. They make law. And it's a glaring omission. So I dropped the words moral hazard. I said, look, there's a glaring moral hazard. Moral hazard, what are you talking? And she sort of get angry at me. And I'm like, hang on, no. So please stop, please. Look, you phoned me up to hear what my inquiry was about. I'm trying to tell you it's all through everything I've written. They've clearly misread it. I don't know why they've misread it, but I'm not asking you to interfere. I'm asking you to make a law. You can make a private member's bill. In fact, what I'd like you to do is get the whole of Labor on board, as you're my local rep. And she started to give me the, don't you, and don't you phone me again, and don't you harass me. Do that. That is what you are there for. It is your job. And you're paid handsomely for it. And I'm not. So having not slept due to the sort of, oh my God, why are they ignoring this painful? I was given a lecture. And I tried really hard, like I said, to keep, because when you're in this, you got to keep the lid right on it so that you don't piss anybody off too much, because you want people on side, the old saying about honey attracting more bees than vinegar and whatever it is. And you're asking for people's help, so you're naturally meant to be supplicant, a supplicant. And aren't we all trained to be as women so often? But no, she had decided she had it in for me because I'd basically made a few calls around the place and gone, what's going on? Why aren't they calling me back? And how come? And they're verbaling me. I didn't ask for this, I asked for that. I didn't ask them to interfere with an existing, with a court case underway. I'm asking to make law so that nobody like me or the 8 adults that I know ever have to be in this situation again. And, you know, if you can imagine, you go home at night, as I said, like, well, I don't know, like the world's going home and seeing they're up in arms and murdering children in the Gaza Strip because Israel's stolen children, Hamas has stolen children off Israeli people and murdered them. And then, you know, we're up in arms because Russia's stolen children off Ukrainian mothers and fathers. And like, this is a catastrophe and it's going on right under your nose and there's nothing to stop it in Australia. And, you know, of course, then you start to disappear down the how can this possibly be? And then you look at the referendum results and imagine what it's like to just live your entire life as an Aboriginal person. And this is their everyday experience. And like, Jesus Christ, I can't even really complain because I feel like I can complain and am and should and will until it's changed. I take that back. Strike that from the record. But the point of it is, it's like the land, it's like the vibe, as the Coen brothers would say in their Great Lebowski. It's like the vibe of this land is impregnated into my life now. It's this stolen children thing. And it doesn't seem to matter how much evidence I throw at these people. It's like, there's all my nannying clients, there's all my childcare clients, there's my own family, there's my children's academic results, there's this, there's that. There's, you know, people who've known me at close range and see me with my children. There's my ex-partner. There's my husband. And they, to amend the word retard that I used yesterday, fire retardant against, resisting all logic and facts, resisting the facts of evidence. So because Alison Burns had decided that I'd pissed her off enough after 12 weeks of campaigning gently and then yet persistently, as Penny Wong said about bringing Cheng Lai home, the journalist, consistent, persistent campaigning, I thought that's what I was doing. And of course, if you go onto one of these platforms, I don't even know if she looked at it, and it doesn't really matter because the whole point is she'd had 3 months and that's a job, and she'd invited me in with the AEC generated letter saying welcome to the constituency, and that's her job, or otherwise why did she get into it? If not to make good law, to uphold democracy. And the thing of it was alarming was as well this frightening lack of empathy. Like when I said to her, "Oh, just out of curiosity, are you a mother?" Because I was going to say, like, can you imagine if you hadn't seen your own child since Christmas Day? And that was all it took. And of course, as I said, I had not Wikipedia'd her stupidly, which I did as soon as she got triggered, seemingly, by me dropping the words Paul Scully, because Paul Scully, as I've just said, is for state Labor and she's federal, and they're over the road from each other. And of course, they would therefore know each other. And like so many intersectional things in life, you know, they intersect, the law intersects at different points with each other. Like feminism says that women's lives intersect between, you know, housing affordability, childcare affordability, being abused by spouses. There's an intersectionality, they call it in academia. And so, of course, there's an intersectionality everywhere. It's down at the goddamn traffic lights. And there's one down the road with the federal and state law. I had no idea that they were married. No idea. So when she got pissed at me for dropping Minister Scully's name because he's the Minister for Wollongong and therefore for state, which is, you know, police and schools. And, of course, the police are completely involved in this matter because if family law court orders aren't being enforced, and then if they're trying to breach you by putting AVO, like trying to make problems for you by putting AVOs on you, as Ian Little did with me when I came to give my own daughter, who I haven't seen since Christmas Day, who's 11, who he allowed to nearly die in a house fire, having her leg burnt, which you can see further down my Facebook page here, by a radiator that she fell asleep on in his house last year, and then WhatsApped me the photo of, and then he cut all communications because they're like, what the fuck, she could have died, like, what are you doing to my child? And so this is nightmare condition, and like this person didn't even have any basic empathy. but wanted to give me a very audible lecture because, of course, she was in her office by this point this morning, and so all of her hardworking workers could hear how she was valorising her hardworking workers and warning me not to do it too many. Like, don't contact us again until we get a letter back. We will put your letter. She said to me as if it was okay, well, you got that much out of us, a concession. She gave me a concession speech, like, okay, we will put your letter to Federal Attorney Mark Dreyfus, but that's it, and we won't talk to you again. Dude, debt, I'd already done that. And I was hoping that you would officially do that, but please don't misrepresent me. Please don't misinterpret me. I'm not asking you to interfere with a law case. It's illegal, and it's not the separation of powers. You don't uphold the separation of powers by trying to interfere with a judge. It's illegal. So why would I ask you to do that? And you clearly, B, didn't even read what I said, and C, or you've got people down there who aren't of very much capacity because they didn't read it, and D, I've been misrepresented, and E, fuck that shit, all of that shit. Aren't you concerned that I'm a mother who hasn't seen her children? So no, more concerned with a lecture. And so because she got so triggered when I dropped the name Scully, I immediately... it became this shouting match. She was like, if you're going to talk over the top of me, and of course, I've been a Balinsky all my life. It's not like she'd be the first person to accuse me of that. And I went, no, but I'm actually trying to get, since you're so angry with me about something that I'm suffering, for fuck's sake, is the undercurrent of that. The subtext, as they used to call it, was for fuck's sake, I'm the one suffering, yet I'm the one getting the lecture from you because I've given you 12 weeks to do your job. I've finally called in some muscle from other women who are in the Federal Labor Party who are doing their job, and I'm trying to finally sort of make some calls going, is there something wrong down at Wollongong? Like, fuck, they're not doing anything. Bam! Boom! So she comes out, it's like, oh, wow, I criticised you. Okay, yeah, far out. You don't feel anything in here for me at all. And anyone in this situation, it's a frightening, hard country. It really is. It's terrifying. And then these... I don't know how they came across the post that I made of the woman, the family law barrister, the 34-year-old barrister who yesterday was murdered in the last 36 hours was murdered in Australia in the Crown Plaza. We're at the 2nd of November today in Australian Eastern Standard Time. She got murdered. And I had this person who looked like a transgender woman, like guy who's a woman, wants to be a woman, called Kylie Mope. And I thought it must have been a pseudonym because... Mope's not a very common surname, is it? And they did look like a Muppet Mope. And then looked like a guy who was trying to be a girl. And it was this incel MRA bullshit coming at me on the keyboard, which was, but she was a lawyer who was fucking her client. Oh my God. Here we go again. Like listening to my father, the second last time I ever spoke to him in 2016, leaning into another guy going, you got to cut Warren Rogers some slack for murdering his wife for 45 years. She was rooting around on him. And I'm looking at my father with my jaw just hitting the table at her wake, as if that's not bad enough. But because my dad's been the one down Lady Jane and Reef Beach all his life with porno, Playboy and penthouse collections all over the house when we were he had 3 little girls. My mother's a prude who's never shown us a nude body in her life before she died. And, he did commit adultery. So by his own logic, he should have been murdered by my mother if the same laws applied to men as do to these people. Kylie Mope was one. And then there was Mark Burry, whoever the fuck that is. And they were giving me these arguments, but she was fucking her client. I was like, oh my God, well, you've clearly missed most of human history because there are multiple wives for many women on earth right now and historically, and there were harems, and then there's Bacchanalia, of course, and you wouldn't want to go to an orgy. And you wouldn't want to actually have just consensual sex with anyone because what you're supposed to, if you're having adulterous extramarital sex, like my godmother Anne Rogers was at 63 years of age when her 68-year-old husband of 45 years murdered her after 6 months of knowing about it. They were literally, read down the post, I've left them there. I mean, it's easy to block people, but it's more revelatory to not, because this is the mentality of this is worldwide global misogyny and patriarchy mentality is well, she was fucking someone else. She had it coming. That's what their arguments amounted to. And this woman, I don't know what she was, don't care. Kylie Mope, read it and weep. Or just get a sledgehammer, like I did with my mouth. Or this. She's just literally saying, you don't know anything about this and I do. And then I went, okay, well, great. Well, you have it. Why don't you speak to his ex? And I'm thinking, fuck, I better know what I'd hear if I did. I'd find out that he was disgusting. And I'd love to speak to his ex because I'd like to know whether there were any signs. Like I asked my godfather's brother after my godfather murdered his wife after 45 years of marriage at 68 years of age on the 13th of September out at Milpera, 2016. And I said, were there any warning signs? Like, what did you see? Now that you've got this piece of key information for this good man who was such a nice guy, loved by his 2 boy and girl children. His son hacked his own mother's computer to expose her and gave it to his father, so it directly caused her murder, or indirectly, close to directly. And I think I mentioned here, and if I haven't, I'll say it again, I sat 2 rows deliberately in front of my family at the High Catholic Church, packed to the rafters funeral of my godmother, Anne Rogers, and I hissed as soon as Grant Rogers took the podium with his extremely shrunken, frightened, petrified, terrified wife standing mutely beside him, because I knew what had happened. He, as an IT expert, had cracked open her laptop, revealed her affair, even though they'd already been going to marriage counselling and knew and had talked about it in front of formal marriage counsellors, and she had promised not to do it again in sort of an effort to patch it up. So I've got, if you look down this feed underneath this broadcast, I keep it all public for very obvious reasons, to campaign, to get back to the top point, chip away. They are mounting an argument, essentially, and of course they go completely silent and or block you when you make a point that they can't defend on any logical ground. And so this Kylie Mope thing said to me, oh, I've been a victim of domestic violence. And I was like, what do you want, a fucking medal? Like, in case you've obviously just jumped onto the thread. And by the way, how did you get onto this thread? Because I didn't tag anyone and I don't know you. So can you answer how you got here? Like, I didn't write down from a news article that I saw somewhere else and start writing and feed the thread. I'm sure I didn't. I mean, maybe I did. I don't know how she even found the thread on my own account. She or he, or whoever it is, presuming it's a person at all and not some men's rights incel moron trying to, like the other one, Mark Burry, got on and said men murder more men than they murder women. I'm like, well, that's what we're saying. You're the problem, idiot. And by the way, we don't murder you twice a week like you murder us, so it's not equivalent at all. Your these men's penises have been inside these women very recently, and then they murder them. And clearly they feel the entitlement to control their bodies and control their lives and snuff their lives out if they're rejected sexually. Like the woman last week at St Andrew's Cathedral School in the middle of a high-tech, high-security, safe building of an exclusive elite private school, same thing in Sydney, and she got murdered in the workplace by a young man who then went and killed himself. And you've got to, like, very black humour here, but in some ways you've got to go, well, what, 2,000% for commitment? If only you'd had commitment to a lifelong loving relationship instead of a commitment to, you didn't get what you want, you disgusting little male entitled fucking asshole, so you murdered somebody. Share this. Let's put that into Chinese and Japanese and Afghani and Iraqi and every other E. Let's put it into every. Let's subtitle it and just take a soundbite and stick it across the planet. Who the fuck do these men think they are? Who do they fucking think they are? And so the second last conversation with my father is like, I hear him, and obviously I wasn't meant to, because he leans in, goes in for the kill to this other male ear at the wake of my murdered godmother and says, oh, well, you got to cut him some slack. I mean, she was fucking around on him. And I'm like looking at my father and going, oh my God,
your hypocrisy, for starters, and B, you're saying that because they were having adultery, they deserve to be murdered, but not the men. And then the question there becomes, how do you teach men that they're not, from when they're boys, because my little girl's already having her arm jammed backwards and slammed into chairs. And when I said, how often does this happen? She said, boys are mean to all the girls at school all the time. She's 11. She's in year 6. So you can't start early enough. You can't start early enough in this don't you touch me or you'll be in jail idea, okay? Get your hands off our body. Don't you touch me. Don't you tell me that I can't have an abortion. Don't you touch my body. Don't even think that you can't control yourself. You got a problem with what I said because you think I'm fucking angry, and then walk out of the room, take a breath, and don't come back ever. Or don't come back till tomorrow. Or don't come back until you've got sober. Or just don't come, just go. Because as I discovered, the only time in my life that I've ever violated that code of getting physical, like if you lost it with your kids and you're smacking them, you're like, fuck, it's my fault, fuck, I'm out of control, it's officially fucked. If you lose it, as I have twice, physically lost it, and done something you physically regret, you know that it is a line that you have stepped over. And so if you go, well, then why aren't women physically losing it and killing men? Because men do enough to just be as disgusting to women on every level, just as disgusting as men think women are to them. It's all equally, let's just say it's all a great big universe of equal disgustingness, and everyone's completely capable, as we know, of equally atrocious behaviour. The line is, in a democracy, that you do not lose your shit physically and assault somebody and or murder them, particularly, because that's where we draw the line. So man, so in my family, I saw this monumental and disgraceful double standard, and which is misogyny. Lived misogyny is that belief that men are entitled to have retribution, essentially, on women if they're rejected in a relationship or rejected sexually and or all of the above. Remember, I think I've said this further down. I'll just say it again because it just so pinged my memory. One of the psychiatrists who falsely diagnosed me in 2016 when I had a genuine nervous breakdown, and that's been diagnosed, as I've said, by 4 subsequent mental health professionals. There were 2 doctors out at Concord. One was Dr. Gavin Angus Lapan, and the other one was a woman called Dr. Reddy. She was an Indian, good-looking, well-dressed, svelte, and she knew it. And she, like so many psychiatrists, she was like sort of, again, missing an empathy chip. And I recognised her face on the news a couple of years ago, like 2 or 3 years later, and I was like, where do I know that face? And then the penny dropped, and there was a young Indian woman who was a dentist, and she went on a Tinder date, and she didn't like him, so she swiped him left after the actual date in real time and in real life, and ended up a couple of days later being stalked when she went out on another date by this flicked guy, who then butchered her body, chopped it up into tiny little pieces, and they hadn't worked out where she'd gone. They just knew she was missing. And 24 hours later, took them a while, them being the police, it took them a while to work out that he'd driven 4 or 5 hours north of Sydney, and he'd accelerated at extremely high speed into an oncoming Mack truck on the other side of the road and killed himself. So, like, you've got to kind of wonder what the fuck is going through, like, because my godfather at 68 tried to kill himself too after he successfully killed his wife of 45 years for his basically out of control ego, because of course the proof of this entitlement, and that is all it is this superiority complex, this entitlement, the proof with my godfather of his male entitlement. Not like all males have the entitlement, but the proof of this mentality, this fucking misogynist, poisonous, global mentality that men can put their hands on and murder women if they're frustrated about them sexually, is that after going to jail, And unbeknownst to me, because of course, because of my stance, it's like, oh, you're a rabid feminist, we're not talking to you, we know what you're going to think about this. As his own daughter, Olivia, said to me, take your problem with men somewhere else, because I tried to communicate with her a couple of months after it had happened, because Olivia and her brother Grant, who hacked his mother's computer and told her father that she was still having an affair and he murdered her, because they all blamed the mother for having an adulterous relationship, as if that, like what, Bill Clinton would have been murdered 15 fucking times by now, wouldn't he? Even getting his dick sucked by a staffer on the job, but he's still a great president. Right, whereas if Hillary Clinton, like I said the other day, had 15 male staffers go down and perform cunnilingus on her while she was in the Oval Office. I like the obvularity of it. But anyway, she would have been stoned to death. And so there's this Stone Age medieval thing that still has, this mentality that still has not left our first world democratic culture, because he then, to get back to the point of what my godfather Warren Rogers did after he murdered his wife Anne at 68 years of age when she was 63 after 45 years of marriage, he then went from jail and fucking hired to mount a challenge, a Supreme Court challenge, because he argued, and his argument was that there was high provocation. And remember, I've said, if you've seen any of these other videos, I've said that according to a family member who spoke to him after it all happened, the argument on the conjugal bed where he snuffed her to death with a pillow, crushing her sternum and killing her, literally murdering her, on the 13th of September 2016, 12 weeks after Mum had died. Mum was Warren's stepsister, because Warren's mum had brought my mother up when my mum's mum died young. And the mentality he mounted, I don't know where he got the money, and this is why I now want to start to do Supreme Court challenges, just to shoot off there, to men who do this. Because if it's not going to be upheld, I mean, obviously it's illegal to murder people. I kind of cocked up the beginning of yesterday's broadcast in saying these laws that allow men to murder. I meant these laws that allow men to get away with, and women in Australia, to get away with stealing children. That's what I meant to refer to, so I stuffed that up. But if you're so entitled that you're in jail for murder, and he tried to mount an appeal based on extreme provocation, and the judge threw it out. I can't remember the judge's name. I know who said yesterday, Justice Julia Lonergan ruled on him to put him in jail, but I don't know who ruled on him for appeal. But the mentality was that he's in jail, and the judge just goes, no reasonable jury in Australia is going to think that your wife fucking another man is extreme provocation. And yet I've got these incel MRA fuckers on this very thread, on this very Facebook page, trying to tell me that the woman who was a family law barrister in the Crown Plaza in Perth 2 days ago had it coming, essentially, is the argument, had it coming, because she was fucking a client. And of course, how, these people are not very bright, because the logic is, if this man's a client in family law, then he's clearly probably already split from his wife or girlfriend or mother of his child, whoever, and he's come to her for advice, and they've got it on as consenting adults. They've started to have sex, and they're in the Crown Hotel, and she gets murdered, and he does the same thing that my godfather tried. It's like the half-assed attempt at killing yourself. And then, of course, the one who murdered Lily, the young woman who was the water polo teacher at my daughter's old private school at St Andrew's Cathedral School last week, he threw himself off a cliff. So there's this admixture in these violent men who murder women in Australia, this pattern of I'm going to try and kill myself now because you're not going to control me. I'm going to control you. And get back to the point about Dr. Reddy, who was one of 2 psychiatrists who incorrectly diagnosed me having a nervous breakdown and threw me away and stuffed me full of pills and fucking scheduled me and put me in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest on steroid out at Concord in 2016, when I just, like I said, watched mum die and then the murder, and I'm bleeding to death, I'm losing my child in the family law court, self-defended, I've got to pay to sell my house to pay to save my life after a 5-week waitlist emergency at Royal North Shore would have killed me. So I got to go private for a hysterectomy, and I fucking lose everything all at once, then go down like a bag of shit. And they don't even go, oh, geez, that's a pretty shit run. Yeah, you're having a nervous breakdown at 166 beats per minute heart rate. That's what's wrong with you. No. They just think I'm bipolar, and all these fucking tags get put on. So, oldest child's father and my youngest child's father get to walk around Sydney and embarrass me and humiliate me, as if fucking losing your own children is not like a living nightmare enough. You then get to have to walk out into the public and be degraded and humiliated by the false belief that you've harmed your children and you're insane. And actually, it's a perfectly normal trauma-induced nervous breakdown, as I read in the last couple of days from other people who are not me, about other people's lives, other women who suffered. And so this woman, Reddy, one of the psychiatrists, was her sister. To wrap all that up, that was the scenic route. Dr. Reddy out at Concord, who was a psychiatrist, had her sister was the Indian dentist who was murdered and chopped up into little pieces, and then the guy from a Tinder date she rejected him, like I said. The guy stalks her, murders her, chops her up, and then accelerates into an oncoming Mack truck 4 hours north of Sydney, 24 hours later, and it takes them not very long, to their credit, to have put that all together, that that's how she died and it was him, and that's how he died. So, like, wow, I mean, it's a real commitment to your cock, isn't it? Like, your cock's in someone, so you own them, and then your cock gets rejected somehow, or your cock doesn't like what it hears through its ears, and so you kill. Cock kill. That's what we should call it, cock kill, because it's not cunt kill, is it? I'm going to say that word because I got one. Claiming it back. There's something about the possessiveness and this culture of male entitlement and possessiveness makes them think that because you've got a pouch and they've got a thing that goes in it. I even said this to a barrister who was 69 years old 2 years ago. So let me get this straight. You're going to do X, Y, Z to someone whose penis, who your penis was in recently. And he looked at me. This is a very storied man. You know, he set up the Australian Marijuana Party, Peter Livesey. And he had co-founded the Redfern Legal Centre, and he defended against, in the late 70s, against Roger Rogerson, and he was a massive activist against police crime under Roger Rogerson and Abe Saffron, and he also was Warren Lanfranchi's barrister when Warren Lanfranchi was murdered in Dangar Lane off Cleveland Street. And so this guy and then became a heroin addict after he was debarred in the High Court alongside Emeritus Professor of Journalism Wendy Bacon from UTS, who at the time was a barrister with Peter Livesey, and they were all activists, and they did an activist job on a place called Katingal, in case you're into the law and into Australian history, social history of Sydney. Done this recording with him, 32-part series, and no, I don't know how to get podcasts up. If anyone who's listening does, help, because they're interesting, because this guy has had an interesting life, but yet even he said to me, he kind of went all quiet and he looked at me like a chastened Labrador or something, and said, I found that really confronting when you just put it like that. And I went, what, penis? I'll say it again, penis, 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 penis. I used to make my daughter laugh. I go, penis! On a car. She'd go, Mum, shh! And then we'd laugh, giggle, and make it just loud enough for her to hear it, not everyone else, but make it sound loud enough for other people to hear it if they actually... So I'd make her laugh, and then I'd go, vagina! Shh! It's horrible! You know, genitals and all of that. Children, learn young that it's somehow disgusting, the poison of the fucking church. But, getting back to it, look at these fucking men who you wouldn't want to be in an orgy. You wouldn't want to be in any bacchanalian society that walked into, like, ancient Rome. You wouldn't want to be in ancient Greece where, it was kind of totally normal for you to have sex with a young boy if you were an older man and take them on and teach them and train them in life as sort of an apprentice that was also you were a pedophile with. That there's, like, this... I wonder whether ancient Rome and their pedophile the normalisation of pedophilia, where you sort of, learnt your trade while you were being banged as a 13-year-old, if you're a boy only, because only boys could participate in learned culture back then, even only 2,000 years ago in the West. So it's just, I don't know. And then these are obviously extended extempore ruminations on fascinations, but it's revulsions, isn't it? It's fucking sick, and it's so self-evident, and I know we've had the referendum, so I guess you can't really act surprised that people are so idiotic in this day and age in a country like Australia where they've had the chance not to be. But read it and weep below. They come out of the woodworks saying that because a woman had sex outside of who she was allowed to have sex with, she's deserving to be murdered. It's just... And how come they can't control... Where's all the conversation about why these men can't control themselves, and how dare they think that they can control women? And how could you be so motivated by your dick to kill yourself after killing a woman because of your dick? Like, which part did you miss in, things will probably change and you might get over this and you can have a life because you're only young and you're 21? Like, what is this crazy thing? And is it testosterone? And why aren't we looking at that neurotransmitter? Where's the research on that? Fuck Elon Musk and your fucking Mars rock that no one can live on with no water and no oxygen, you moron. Get on your rocket, fuck off there. Take Jeff Bezos, take all your poisonous little boys, fuck off. Just go, okay? But give all your money first back to women on Earth so that they can have absolutely free tomorrow, absolutely free contraception, because then they would not be supplicant, beholden to men, and climate change would halve inside of 15 or 20 years because half the population would just drop, within a generation or two because they don't have to get pregnant every time a penis goes near them. Say it, penis, penis, penis. That's what it is. It's this cocksure culture, isn't it? Say it. Like Tracy Chapman sang. Say it, say it, say it. Tell it like it is. Fuck, that's enough, I think.